and it's internal and relational.
Yep.
Internal and relational. So I used to think it was more internal. I told you in the beginning, I loved bringing self into the picture. That was super important for me, but I don't feel that self alone is enough for healing anymore. I've really changed. I really believe it has to happen in connection. And
I'm honored today to welcome Dr. Frank Anderson, founder of the Trauma Institute and a leading voice in the world of trauma healing and systems of self. For over 3 decades, Dr. Anderson has devoted his career to understanding how trauma lives in the nervous system and how we can reclaim resilience, connection, and wholeness. At the Trauma Institute, he leads work rooted in the values of compassion, accessibility, innovation, and collaboration, bringing together modalities like internal family systems, somatic therapy, EMDR, and other approaches to create integrative healing pathways. In today's conversation, we will dive into the intersections of trauma, nervous system science, and parts work. He will help us explore not only how trauma shapes our stories and bodies, but also how we can heal. Welcome to Wired for Connection, a Polyvagal podcast. I am your host, and my name is Travis Goodman. Welcome. So, Frank, first and foremost, so stoked that you're here to talk with us at the Institute here for Wired for Connection. And I'm wondering, can you tell us just a bit about your background and how you ended up in the world of like IFS?
yeah, it was an interesting journey. Somebody who kind of started out with Bessel van der Kolk at his trauma center. I was a psychiatrist for Bessel van der Kolk starting out in 1992, long time ago, and worked with trauma from the get-go. Like that's when I graduated from my residency in psychiatry at Harvard. It was like Bessel van der Kolk's trauma center was at my institution. Yeah. So I was so lucky and fortunate to kind of be a part of Bessel's world, like since 92, like long time. And I think I'm at the, every year I would do a psychopharm conference for Bessel on the psychopharmacology of PTSD and dissociation at his annual conference, which by the way is still in existence, right? And one year he invited Dick Schwartz. I saw this guy, blah, blah, blah. And I went to the workshop. It was like totally random. I went to the workshop and I was like, wow, that was one of my Oprah aha moments, really. It was one of those like, holy cow, like you can really, everybody talked about integrating trauma, not healing it, like integrating your experience, I should say, which is different than integrating models because we weren't there at the time at all. Yeah. How do you process your trauma and live with it and move on? And Dick Schwartz was talking about healing and getting these parts out of the past and never having to go back to the trauma, which was a novel idea for me at the time. So in the ways that I do, I dove in, I took level 1, level 2, level 3. I was like, I'm going to be around him and have any chance I can. And, I have this tendency to rise to the top is what I do because I'm just so voracious around my learning. And surprise, surprise, a lot of it was about my own healing. Like, hello, like, yes, I want to help people and I have, but I was also desperately trying to heal my own trauma. So IFS became a really good modality for me. It really integrated a lot of things. I had been EMDR trained. I trained in sensory motor psychotherapy. I knew a lot about neuroscience, and it was kind of a way, I created the trauma curriculum for IFS, and it was a way for me to put my stamp on the IFS model and integrating neuroscience and all these other models in a way that wasn't there before. So it was kind of a natural fit. For me, and that's kind of how I how I got started in a way.
Yeah, it was right time, right place. That it's just door was open, and I could see how you would take that step with this novel idea of something that was a little more unique in the sense around trauma, integration, healing. Like, wow, this is different. Someone's coming and talking about it. Let's just go. And it sounds like myself. Like it gets exciting. Like, let's go for the door. And it was literally in your next door or in your same door room, I guess, technically.
You know what else? I'll say one other thing about it also was the idea that self mattered was novel for me because I grew up in this very ethnic Italian family. And in that trauma constellation, the group was much more important than the individual. When you're in a kind of a trauma environment, certain cultures deal with trauma differently. My family culture, which was like Italian mafia family, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Life was like the group is what's important. Individuals are threatening to the survival of the group. So this idea that self mattered, that I mattered, was really a powerful draw for me. Like I can include me in this discussion. It doesn't always have to be about the group.
Yeah, that resonates, makes total sense. It's bit, I can imagine you as you're training through schooling, like this is probably even right timing to be open to the idea of like, oh my gosh, like I never really thought of this. Even if maybe there was a knowing in the gut level, it's like, my environment said no. And now this guy's coming talking about this. Wait, what?
It was like, I matter. I matter.
Yeah.
Okay. That was kind of bringing self into the picture. Like, and some people, as we know, and polyvagal theory talks about this, like, hyper aroused, hypo aroused, whether you're ventral or dorsal or sympathetic. Like when you're in dorsal, it's not about the group at all. It's all about me, like I'm alone, like I am shut down. So some people have the shutdown where group is important. I was the opposite. I was like, it's all about the group. The individual's not important. So when we look at these adaptations of trauma, some people, there are different polar opposites here, which polyvagal theory does a great job of, describing neurophysiologically, whatever side you're on. Now I'm like, both matter. It's like, the self and connection heals trauma. It's a both and, not an either or.
And absolutely. But of course, depending on where you're coming from, it's like, we'll lead you on these, and again, which is also IFS, the polarizations and on all that stuff on blending and why, what's the purpose, what's the protective, what's it trying to prevent? I mean, and when I think of IFS, those that some listening to this will know, obviously some, if it's a therapist listening, you probably have heard the term at this point, if you don't know what it is. Can you give like a quick elevator pitch? Like, what is IFS in Frank's eyes? Like, this is what it's about.
Yes. Yeah, it's great. And it's good that you say in Frank's eyes, because I've really expanded this model from my perspective as it relates to trauma. So there's probably the Dick Schwartz traditional, what IFS means to him. And there's the Frank Anderson, what IFS means to me, mostly as it relates to trauma, because that's really the way I've incorporated this model. But generally speaking, the model says that we really have different parts or aspects of our personality. Everybody does, and we're born with them. Because when I was in my residency program, if you had parts, you were considered multiple personality disorder. Like, parts were pathological. Parts were a problem. Dick Schwartz had this novel idea that said parts are normal. We're actually born with them. And this is my interpretation, because of overwhelming life experiences, which we all have, some of our parts will take on different roles. Okay. Some of our parts will take on the role of protection. They show up as symptoms. Eating, drinking, binging, whatever is a protective response to trauma. That's unusual for people to hear, that these symptoms, which seem problematic, are actually primitive but protective adaptations. So the part that drinks is trying to protect from the overwhelming pain of loneliness, for example. So we all have parts that are forced to take on extreme roles as a result of trauma. And we all have parts that carry the pain of the trauma, the wounding of the trauma. I'm lonely, I'm alone, I'm unlovable, I'm worthless, I'm no good, right? And there's this way of dealing with the parts that protect, the parts that carry the pain, and this concept of self-energy, this inherent wisdom or healing capacity that is that internal work that I was so drawn to of, hey, there's a way that you, self, the non-traumatized place in you,
Yeah.
have the capacity to help heal this trauma and release the energy that isn't yours to carry in the first place, that you carry as a result of your trauma. So for me, it's a lot about self-connection and self-awareness to have people reconnect to these places that have been severed within themselves as a result of trauma.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And I love in Frank's eyes, that's why I asked it, because you're right. We all have different perspectives. And I'm not talking to Dick Schwartz, I'm talking to Frank.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
we'll talk to Dick another time. But,
There you go.
and what I hear too is that just a thing that came up for me, I think, in a culture today too, and I'm kind of baiting you on this. So just so you know, you're going to answer beautifully. I know you will. But is self the same thing? When people hear self, I think sometimes we get into the realm of like, okay, now there's being selfish and like, narcissistic. Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when we say self, can you just give another quick little defining piece to that for the listeners here so they understand?
It's not going to be quick. I'm sorry.
I know.
And the
Expand,
reason that they
please.
say this is because I've really expanded it. Like,
Yeah.
if you look at the traditional IFS model, Dick Schwartz talks about the 8 C's of self energy: calm, curious, compassionate, clear, creative, confident. I can never remember all
Yeah,
eight.
I'm always I'm the same. Like, there's 8 in there.
I get about 5 to 7, and then I'm good to go. And that's one such way to think about self. It's different than parts, and we're born with it. The reason I say it's not a quick answer for me is what I've done is expanded this idea of self energy because of trauma in a couple different ways. So on one level, I expand the human experience of self from our spiritual dimension of self. And I talk about the difference between self and soul. Everybody has a soul, and that is this like essence. I think our resilience and temperament are aspects of our soul. Okay? So there's this spiritual source energy, God, Buddha, whatever you want to call it. It's like healing capacity that's in everyone.
Yeah.
That has a dimension of source and soul and God and Jesus, Buddha, whatever. So I think it's a layer that's beyond us. It's like a state of being when we access that place that I think everyone's capable of. Okay.
Yeah.
That's different than the human experience of self. So I make this distinction because we all have a self. We're all living in the world, and neuroscience shows us about where is self located, and this gets into polyvagal theory, like is self in ventral, and I've had lovely discussions with Deb Dana about this, which has been really great, Deb, and I'm like, for me, self is bigger than ventral alone, and self also incorporates ventral, which is this safe neurological state that allows us to be safe in connection, right? So it's a state of being is the way I think of it, which is why I add a spiritual dimension as well as our human experience. And I think it has a wisdom about it that's wiser than any therapist ever will be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to help people access their intuition and their wisdom because that is what got severed in trauma.
Yeah.
You get disconnected from your safe source soul as a result of trauma. And we're here to heal that and reconnect it. So, one other thing I'll say about this, and this is another new expansion for me, is the IFS model in its traditional form will say self is never harmed or traumatized. I have a slightly different view on that. And what my slightly different view is this, and this comes from personal experience, as well as working with people who have been sexually violated in particular, but not only. When we're talking about components of who we are, gender, orientation, or our sexual being.
Mm.
When those things get violated, for me, that's a violation of the human dimension of self.
Yeah.
As somebody who grew up gay, like gay is not a part.
Mm-mm.
It's who I am.
Yeah.
Okay. Gender, whether you're man, woman, or non-binary, is not a part. It's like who I am
Mm.
in human form.
Mm.
So I think self can sustain trauma under certain circumstances. When I work with people who have been sexually violated, it violates their sense of self.
Yeah.
You understand?
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah. Big time.
I distinguish, I say, yes, I believe self can be traumatized. And that's why I distinguish self from soul.
Yeah.
I don't think soul or source energy
Yeah.
I think that's always protected.
Yeah. I would totally agree with that distinction. 100%. Because that's like the ultimate soul. I think in that sphere is more of the ultimate truth, reality,
Yes.
and
Yes.
we're kind
Yeah.
of trying to live in this.
You got
How do we integrate these planes? And then, our truth. And I agree with working with some pretty highly traumatized individuals, especially with sexual abuse or even pretty invasive, to some degree, psychological
Yeah.
abuses too, can really affect the self big
Right.
time. And it really warps that view,
Yeah.
especially when it starts at a really young age. And if it's ongoing, it just makes everything so confusing.
Right. Pre-verbal
Oh
or
God, yeah.
attachment trauma. It really does
It's
affect our sense of who we are in the world.
big time. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I love that distinction that there's another layer here in which we can access that we all have the capacity for.
Yeah.
It makes
Yeah.
me think of many writers. I even think of, Linehan's work at DBT was her thing is we all have the capacity for wisdom. Now, do we access it?
Yeah.
We don't always, but we all have the capacity for it. And other
We got it.
great thinkers have said something very similar to this. And I love, today, obviously, we're looking at, that's a little, by the way, I love the expansion on self. I think that's so helpful to distinguish and to be a little clear. And taking the next step for today's conversation is the integration. There's that fun word of, polyvagal theory and IFS. So how do you see with your work now, like, 2025, here we are with all this stuff. How are you integrating IFS and polyvagal theory now in your work?
So different. My work is so different in that way. I have to tell you, and in a way that feels really good. It's an evolution. And, before I dive into the way I integrate, I want to give credit to all the model makers.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like Pat Ogden, Marsha Linehan, Francine Shapiro, all the Dick Schwartz, all these people that I can't believe I'm forgetting his name.
Peter Levine.
Peter Levine, that's the one I was
Stephen
thinking.
Porges. David Porges.
But you know what? I'm going to say something about Stephen in a way that I see him differently, in a very beautiful way. I don't think of Stephen as a model maker. I think he's, for me, and I've talked to him about this, polyvagal theory goes across all models.
Yep.
Okay. So he's not created a model in a way. I think Deb did a beautiful job integrating it into psychotherapy.
Yes.
But Stephen's model, if you will, is like it oozes into every model.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So that's my view. Okay.
I agree.
But these model makers have highlighted certain aspects of trauma healing, whether it's Peter Levine or Pat Ogden around somatic work, whether it's memory processing around Francine Shapiro and EMDR, or Dick Schwartz around the different parts, right? They all bring an important aspect to trauma healing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where I'm heading, which is for me very aligned with polyvagal theory, is incorporating it all neurophysiologically. And, when you're looking at somebody who's in sympathetic activation, who's in that realm of the ladder, you have to work with processing sympathetic activation in a very different way than you would process dorsal shutdown or hypoarousal, right? And polyvagal theory really helps us. Like, you can hold space for somebody who's sympathetically activated using your ventral
Yep.
to help bring them into a safe zone so that they can feel love and connection and do healing work.
Yeah.
Same is true with somebody who's in dorsal shutdown. When they're so disconnected, the more you push somebody in dorsal shutdown, the further away they're going to run. And so to learn how to utilize yourself, your vagal, if you will, to help bring somebody from the bottom up.
Yep.
When somebody's shut down, it's a bottom up processing, right?
Yeah.
And in some ways, hyper arousal is more of a top down regulation, and hypoarousal is more of a bottom up regulation. So you're needing to use yourself and your nervous system to be able to work with somebody in these extreme forms of trauma. The other thing I'm going to say is, and IFS does not do this, this is an expansion for me, is embodying parts. I have everybody embody parts, and we're using when I'm like, well, when you're angry, what does angry look and feel like? Like, show me the posture of anger.
Yeah.
Right? Where does this fall?
Yeah.
On dorsal ventral, like, where are you here? Like, and how do you move from anger to safe? And that is, Deb and I have talked about this polyvagal tone, like a vagal tone, right?
Vagal tone.
Vagal
Yep.
tone, not polyvagal tone. Sorry. It's so important now for me to have people embody parts and shift out of them. Embody parts and go back to ventral. Same thing with shutdown. Show me what shutdown is like in your body, right? And then shift out of it. Right. And so it helps with unblending and it helps increase vagal tone. And I do this with emotions too. Let's feel it. Let's stop. Let's feel it. Let's stop. So I'm incorporating a lot of polyvagal theory into my work regularly now that incorporates the body and emotion and thinking in a very different way than just from a parts perspective right now. So it's much more integrative. Last thing I'll say about it also is when people get in that zone of soul or self, I stop them and I pause them and I slow it down. And I know Deb does this a lot. Like, wait a minute. I just noticed a moment of safety and connection here. Can we encode that? And what I do now is I have people do bilateral stimulation when they are in self energy.
Yeah, I like that.
Because I'm wanting them to encode and process safety in their body, which is very different than the terror or the shutdown of shame or panic, right? So I'm encoding these things physiologically by utilizing some of the polyvagal principles in a way that I never did before, just doing straight IFS.
And one thing here, I want to ask a follow-up question to that from what you just said, but just to acknowledge, I mean, those are listening. That's a huge, one of the organizing principles is this piece that I think was implied but not said explicitly was co-regulation, right? That you're using your body co-regulating, I said borrowing the vagal, what'd you say? Vagal borrowing or you're their vagal.
Lending your
vagal.
To the person that you're sitting with.
And that's that co-regulation. It's I think of what Dr. Siegel has mentioned about how your children are borrowing your prefrontal. You are their prefrontal cortex is like, and Tina Bryson also said this in their work together. But it's like that's a huge piece of this is that Frank's what you're speaking to is this really embodiment. And you said this
100%.
And using our being, depending on where the client's at. As that anchor point to slow down or to help energize, depending on where they might fall. And also, I think IFS would speak to this too, which I've been doing some training with. And again, it's always expanding. Is like, am I in a part? Am I not only am I in ventral, right? Because if I'm in ventral, I'd say I'd probably in self energy. And that, I don't want to get too lost in weeds because it's not always the case. Because sometimes the self energy for sure could be in sympathetic. It could be in dorsal too. It's all of the states, according to Deb Dana. There's no bad state,
Yeah.
much like there's no bad part.
You got it.
It's like, is this an effective space for me to be in right now? Is this a
Yes.
match? Right? Not that it's bad or wrong.
That's right.
And they both would agree on that. There's no bad part. There's no bad nervous system state.
Yes.
Is it useful and is it sustainable? Is it effective? And, is it leading from self? And I think that's where those really go hand in hand really well together.
Well, here's the thing. Here's where they go together. You're absolutely right. And interesting, I like when I used to teach IFS in a more traditional framework, self is the primary healer to parts, and the therapist is secondary. This is the way IFS teaches. Like self
The
to
classic
part
model. Yeah.
is primary. Self to part is the primary healing agent, and the therapeutic relationship is secondary. Okay. And when you use the word co-regulation, right? I use the word connection because I say love and connection heals trauma.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's internal and relational.
Yep.
Internal and relational. So I used to think it was more internal. I told you in the beginning, I loved bringing self into the picture. That was super important for me. But I don't feel that self alone is enough for healing anymore. I've really changed. I really believe it has to happen in connection. And honestly, I learned this from my own system. It was fascinating in my own therapy, probably a couple of years ago. This younger part of me that was really like physically, verbally and physically abused by my father and neglected by my mother because she needed my father so desperately. Okay. So I had this kid who was utterly alone growing up. He was just utterly alone. And when I tried to show up for him, it wasn't enough for him. He's like, here we are again, you and me, and you left me at the time of the trauma.
Yeah.
How am I going to trust you now? Like it was a very big repair of an internal relationship. And this younger part of me, I could feel it, honestly, as I'm saying it now, was like, I need you and I need somebody else. My kid was like, I need a father and a mother. I need two parents, right?
Yeah.
I need two people to be there for me now. And that was the way my system worked. And I don't say everybody has to have a mother and a father to heal. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's more about
What's the relationship?
self and other.
Well,
It's about the relationship to healing. That is the point that has really expanded my view because I don't think people heal in isolation. I just don't.
I'm glad you said that. I'm very much in line with that, Frank. And that I too have always wrestled with sometimes that some of the overly self-focused modes of healing. That I agree with a lot of what they say, but then I'm always like, but there's something about we're wired for relationship, connection.
We are wired for connection.
Wired for connection. And and this is also to your point, my own experience around healing journey and working with people. I see that there is this longing to be known and to be seen. And we could do a lot of work with our internal self, but there's still a point that I think stops. We still need those. And I'm going to say this blanket, but safe enough relationship, safe enough where we can get that resonance. And I think this is more to the soul that you're talking about. It's like there's a connection to self. And even in Siegel's work, intra-connection, we're connected to beyond this body. And we need that relationship to really be, I think, more whole. Like it requires both.
Well, and most relational trauma happens in the context of a relationship. We get violated relationally.
Yes.
How could we heal in isolation a relational violation? For me, the healing has to be relational also. It's a both and. I don't need to trash the self.
No.
And I don't need to trash the relationship. It's a both and. Now, here's the other thing too. And I'll say this. So there's one pole, which is like, it's all about the self. I don't agree. There's another pole that's like, let me be the corrective experience you never got. Like a lot of attachment theories focus on, and AEDP does to some degree, focuses on, I will be the corrective experience for you. I don't think that is alone enough either. I'm like, let me be this corrective experience while you're here with me. Then we're both here for that part inside that holds the trauma. So for me, it really is a both and I'm always using myself like, I am here with you, and ask that little boy what he needs from you and me in order to feel safe and released. Like I'm using the client self because I've done early on when you work with somebody with DID, dissociative identity disorder, there's very little access to their ventral self.
Sure.
In the beginning of treatment, it's mostly me.
Yeah.
But they're not going to heal in the same way if it's only me.
Right.
And
Right.
it's got to, I want to bring in like you, because what my view is trauma severs that self to part relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so I want to bring that self in with the help of me.
Yeah.
Because trauma is overwhelming by definition.
Yeah. And we need that support, that relationship to say, okay. And it takes time, I think, to build, because they have to build trust with.
Yeah.
And again, with IFS is like even polyvagal theory is like they both work as part of that is like the parts don't trust.
Yeah.
If I'm the therapist, they don't trust me. I'm just another person, right? That could easily fail them or hurt them.
Yeah.
And their job is to question me and the client. And polyvagal theory would also say the same thing is like, well, maybe they're not used to like a calm ventral presence.
Yes.
That could feel alarming, right? Because it's
scary,
like,
totally scary.
Even if it's good, it's like that could feel terrible. This is different. I'm used to a different energy, and I don't know what to do with this energy.
Yeah.
Right, because it's foreign.
And sometimes when you're in self, you're at a greater risk of being traumatized. Right.
Well, because you have all your defenses are gone. Right.
Well, and because perpetrators sniff out self, so when they see it, they want to attack it. Right. Here's something I want to bring up, and this is, I'm curious. I haven't talked to Deb about this, and this is another adaptation or change that I've done in my way of thinking with IFS, and this is where we get into the window of tolerance stuff. Okay, I'll say this. People may be like, whatever. I'm not a fan of the window of tolerance. Okay. And IFS's version is ask the part to not overwhelm. Okay, that's the IFS version of window of tolerance.
Yeah.
Window of tolerance is like, let's get you in a safer state so that you can process your trauma.
Yeah.
Here's where I have trouble with that. And this is, people don't have to agree with me, but I'm going to share this view.
Yeah.
I don't like to ask the parts that have been traumatized to regulate their emotions for the adult in the room. Okay?
Yeah.
What I want to say, and what I do say when I'm doing this work is, you, traumatized part, show up exactly the way you need to. And me and John, me and Susie are going to meet you where you're at.
Yeah.
Do you understand that?
Oh yeah.
So
it's much like parenting. It's much like it's like as I have 3 children. I don't expect my kids to be able to navigate their brain and emotional overwhelm. My job is to say, let me meet you where you are and understand you, see you, validate you, say, oh, I get it, and calm energy, and then start to trust and say, can I guide you? I don't expect them. And that's exactly how I envisioned it, right?
That's right. That's what I mean. And so the window of tolerance is like, can me and the client show up to help
the part
hold the feelings of the part?
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Not can the part regulate itself so that me and the client can handle its feelings. Do you
Right. No,
understand?
I
That's the difference.
100%. Yeah, we can know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another difference that I have. And
Yeah.
it's been, and again, it was part of my experience. I, my system,
Mm,
there was so much trauma I held emotionally.
mm,
And it was hard for me to be with my trauma for many years.
mm.
But I needed to gain the capacity to
Yeah.
be with the trauma, not have the trauma,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
that's the self, right? Right. You correct me. Again, you're more an
totally.
IFS master than I am. I think that's the self
Yes.
saying I have that energy, which then those parts can trust and relax. And then maybe they
Yes.
want a different role. Maybe they
That's
don't
right.
need to be so rigid. They could loosen, they could integrate, they could,
Yeah.
at least that's how I'm hearing it.
That's right. And it is, and it takes, and when we have people who have a lot of trauma,
Mm,
their self in the beginning doesn't have the capacity to be with the trauma.
mm-mm.
So it does take time to
Yeah.
build the capacity of the self
Yeah.
to be with those horrific, overwhelming experiences
Yeah.
in the ways that the parts need.
And maybe, at least in my experience working with highly traumatized individuals too, is that even to know that there is a self. I feel
Oh,
like usually it's more of
yeah.
the exile, the wounded
Yes.
part is more of the truth.
Got it.
And that
Yes.
self is, what do you mean self?
Well,
Like,
and
huh?
they hate this, like, you
Yeah.
abandoned me, you left me.
Right.
Who are we? Yeah, that's one of the things that's also super relational for me
Yeah.
is we're repairing the relationships
Mhm.
that have been severed internally as a result of trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, beautifully said. I'm totally on board with this. And I'm hoping that
Right.
the listener, you're getting a flavor here of,
Yes.
how we can really integrate
Yes.
beautifully
Yes.
these models and how they complement, they
Yes.
expand
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
big time. And again, that how they evolve. Like,
Yeah.
Frank 15 years ago, whatever, versus
Totally.
Frank today.
Yeah. That's right.
And even, Travis 15 years ago, Travis,
Yeah.
very different than what I thought was like, oh,
Right.
this is the way. It's like, actually, there's way more here. And there's a lot of truths in between these different models the model makers, right? They're on to something, and they
They were. Yes.
majorly so. And I love, we need to give them
Yes.
credit. They did a ton. I mean, they were pioneers and
Yeah.
trying to understand how do we help bring healing to this? And I would even probably argue to themselves, like they're probably doing their own work.
Yeah.
Um,
The next wave. The next wave is integration because
yeah,
we have to use the brilliance of the model makers
right.
and put it all together
Yes.
into an integrated. That's my passion right now.
Yeah.
That is where I'm really focusing is like EMDR, brilliant model. It offers a lot around processing memory. Sensory motor psychotherapy, oh my God, incredible. Like IFS, brilliant. Like they all work
Right.
because they all work.
Yeah.
And what if we, as clinicians and coaches and treaters, while incorporating the nervous system stuff that Polyvagal Theory does such a beautiful job, what if we put it all together? Because I didn't only need one model to heal. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't,
I'm with you.
right?
Yeah.
I did EMDR in my world. I do a lot of somatic work.
Mm-hmm.
I do, oh my God. If I'm running in nature, listening to music, I'm in self energy. Like, I do a lot of healing out in nature.
Me too.
Right.
Yep.
So we've got to put it all together. And I think I think that's the call to action for this next wave of our field is to put this stuff together and integrate it.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think a lot of the work that you mentioned, Dr. Porges did, and even Deb Dana, that
Yeah.
Porges is like the great, I see almost like the great unifier that really
Yes.
Polyvagal
Yeah.
Theory
Right.
really incorporates all
It does.
things.
Yes.
It's almost like I remember when I did Polyvagal Theory and I was a certified EMDR. I remember when I first trained in Polyvagal Theory, it went to a new depth
Right.
of like,
Yes.
oh, okay. That's what's let me just sit there. Like my body scans became like the whole sessions, right? Instead of just, how's the body? It's like that became, I would just go deep with body scans and like while doing, biostimulation and really enhancing the nervous system, like it just changed it. And it really saw the powerful work of learning how to listen to the rhythm of the nervous system. Because if that's overriding everything, that nervous system's gonna win 9.9 times out of 10. I can't compete with that, so I got to understand it and listen to it and ride the waves. Okay, where are we here? And not only with the clients, where am I right now? And I think that's some of the parts work I've done with my own IFS stuff is like doing my own parts work with myself. Am I in my part? Am I doing this? And how do I stay and be aware of that and not shame it, but understand and listen? So, as we kind of wrap up, I'm wondering, if they want, if other clinicians and or non-clinicians, coaches, or people are listening to this, they want to find your work or be more interested in this kind of integrative work that Frank Anderson is doing. Where can we find you? How do we listen, watch, consume, etc.?
That's great. Yes, thank you. So, and I am filming a lot of new content now. This is really my focus right now. And I've got a new book. I'm working on a new book deal of how to bring integrated trauma treatment to the general public. Like that is my next project for sure.
Wow.
Probably like I'm on all those social media handles, right? Instagram's probably the most popular place for me around social media, even though I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on YouTube, I'm on, I don't even know all the names. I'm on TikTok, but it's Instagram is Frank_Anderson, MD. And, if you want to take my courses and get my newsletter and find out where I'm teaching all over the place is really my website, which is frankandersonmd.com. And I send out a monthly newsletter. I'm doing a bunch of courses now. I'm filming a lot of my own courses, which are more integrative in this way, incorporating the benefits of IFS and EMDR, all that stuff to teach people how to do this differently. I'm going to say one thing before we close this. I remember this moment. Talk about a moment of change. I was there the first time Stephen Porges showed up in our field because Bessel invited him to his trauma conference, 1995, I believe it was. And I was at the trauma conference, and I was like, there is this guy. He's like this basic science, lovely human being. And it was like a game changer. I was there in the moment that he presented it, which was so cool to be a part of that history.
Yeah.
And now look where it's come. Stephen helped us define dissociation and shutdown and hypoarousal in a way that we didn't know.
Yeah.
We knew hyperarousal, we knew sympathetic activation, but he's brought so much to the field in a way that's been a game changer. So it was kind of cool as one of the older people to be there at the moment it happened.
Yeah, it's a moment of history to see it,
a moment of history,
and also it's like you said, see it unfold over the past 30 years, right? I mean, right, and I know Deb Dana was there, and same thing. It was like, this is different, and it really moved from pathologizing to this is just essentially the nervous system trying to do its job to protect self and to survive. It's not pathology. It's not pathology, right? And so my hope too is that as we move away from some of the pathology that some of our field, and again, I think the history of psychology is long before, therapy was invented. This goes back to the philosophers, right? Really study of the soul, right? Psychology, way back. My hope is that we're coming full circle with now some of the new tech and science and awareness of scans, that we can now see it and kind of connect to some deeper level versus being all pathology. But like, it's about healing and connection and relationship and, loving self and loving others and bringing harmony. Like, that's a mission that I'm about. I know the Institute's about, and we all know that Frank Anderson's about. And so those that are listening, if you want to learn more, definitely go to our website, PVI, go to Frank Anderson's site. Everything's clickable in the links below. They'll all be there. Please reach out and have a great day, Frank. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to Wired for Connection, a Polyvagal podcast. This show is produced by the Polyvagal Institute, an international nonprofit organization dedicated to creating a safer and more connected world. PVI provides education, resources, and community to those interested in learning more about polyvagal theory and applying polyvagal principles in personal and professional contexts. To learn more about polyvagal theory and other offerings, visit us at polyvagal.org, where you can join our online community space and access our free learning library. You will also find information about upcoming courses and community events. Connect with us on social media. You will find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.